Howdy, partner. I've decided to put this out and I will add this disclaimer. Anything that I'm about to say, the chances that I heard this somewhere before, someone wrote about it, made a video about it, I heard it, I forgot that I heard it, and now I'm thinking it's my idea, is so high that please know if you said any of what I'm about to say now before, then chances are that I heard you. And thank you, because it really inspired me to do something, something creative. So, this is going to be a not very fancy video, just my voice. Some readings of the YouTubes, of the Wikipedia, I meant, or the Freudian slip. And hopefully, I will also make a actual quality video eventually in the future. But for reasons that I don't want to go into right now, I just need to do this in this very moment. Because I figured that I will regret not doing it way more than I will regret the cringe of the production level of this here. So, something that bothered me from the get, and I only started to play Elden Ring in October 2023, and it's my first FromSoft game, and it's my first really difficult game, of course. So yeah, I'm from the norm core faction here. Don't hate. I'm an old woman. I loved the lore. My one of my favorite YouTubers, Noah Caldwell Gervais, made a 4 or so hour video about Soulsborne stuff, and I watched it, and it took me another 6 months or so until I actually picked it up. But it was fated, it was destined. I think I'm studying non duality philosophy in my free time, and Elden Ring is a rich treasure trove of all sorts of theosophic and spiritual and esoteric knowledge. And I love Miyazaki for that. I think he's such an amazing person, and I connected with this game in an unnatural, obsessive way. So, something that I never really clicked with from the beginning was this whole idea of Marika being, on one hand, a soft, sleek, tender, slender, blonde woman, and also a super tyrannical, genocidal maniac. Of course, you can look innocent and be an asshole. I'm not saying anything against that. But it just feels really odd how this human, the Newman woman, is presented in one way, and then what you hear and what is told about them. So I always felt there was a huge discrepancy, like with Jesus Christ, where you have a person, a Joshua at some point in history, eventually, we don't even know. And then there's a huge ass myth created out of them hundreds and thousands of years later that has nothing to do with the actual human who was back there. Who knows? Maybe he gave some dry fish and a piece of bread to someone, and it was to someone in such a need that they really made it after that. And they were so grateful to this person that gave them a piece of fish and bread. And they retold the story so many times that it just grew and it became bigger and it became something that was like this person could fabricate fish out of nothing, and there was an abundance of fish, and there was, you know where I'm going with this, right? The whole abundance of sap and the whole grace. And yeah, so I think there was a human being, a Newman woman at some point, and she got into some drama, and whatever happened happened. But what is being told in the game is very different from what really went down. And we're all hoping that the DLC will answer some of these mysterious questions, of course. I know I am. And I also know that I'm way more obsessed with figuring out what this whole Marika Radagon dual split twin body situation is about than the actual ring or shattering or whatever happened there, because that's just like the surrounding drama, right? We know that we're entering the story 5,000 years after everything happened. And we think we know what happened 5,000 years ago. But there are things in the game that we realized have been ancient to the people 5,000 years ago already. As the tarnished archaeologist said in one of his videos, Stonehenge was ancient to the Romans as the Romans are ancient to us, in a way, or as Stonehenge is ancient to us. Now, think about it. There's some character, we have this happening in our written history as far as we can go back. The records that we look back to are produced or come from people, from sources who were people who were either against what they were writing about, or they had a very limited view of what was happening and had their cultural biases coded into into their stories. And then we have our cultural biases coded into our interpretation of hieroglyphs and of old scriptures and texts, and try to put it into a context and be objective about it. But it's basically impossible. And I think Miyazaki wants to, on one hand, warn us about the dangers of trying to overanalyze quote unquote facts and to reconsider source material and the meaning of it, what it really means, that maybe we have to accept that to some extent and some level, we will never be able to figure out the real truth. We can figure out what's real, but not really what was true. So, if that makes any sense, probably not. Let me go to Wikipedia and read a couple of things to you, and then I will explain to you. No, let me start first with my dyslexia, which has me shift around letters a lot. It became a fun activity for me to do, actually. It's quite a hobby to look for puns, look for innuendo, double entendres, and in Elden Ring, it made me really look for hidden meaning in namings. Because I think it's so obvious that the letter arrangements in the names of the gods uh, hide just as much as there's environmental storytelling, there's sound and scent and the vibrations and all kinds of clues helping us put puzzle pieces together. And I was really focusing on the letters a lot. So as Marika is one of the most heard names in the games. It's also one that I looked at a lot of times in connections to the whole lineage and ancestral line. And just the other day, I realized, and I know someone mentioned that in the video, that the word kami is in Marika. You can find the letters Kami in Marika, which is from Shinto. And I ask you to look Kami up and just tell me what you intuitively think when you read about these things. So to me, this already gives a kind of like a specter hue to the whole Marika idea, that it's a name, it's a symbol, it's a logo, it stands for something. But this is not a human, this is not a person, this is not a being behind. um, the being is the body that it becomes through us speaking it into existence, into us weaving the story, into us creating narrations and keeping memories alive in our heads, in our minds. Radagon obviously has the word dragon in it. It's so almost you can't not see it. And then there are some remaining letters, leftover letters, and I was shifting those around. And then on one video that I watched today, someone left a comment saying that Marai from the Castle Marai of the Rot Stan, Marais in French means swamp. So obviously Miyazaki, you bastard, he's just so good at this. So Mare had me for some reason play around with Marika again, and I ended up with the leftover letters from Kami and Dragon together with the French swamp somehow resulted in Ramis. 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 So I Googled, is that a name? Is there a meaning to it? And Ramis was associated with a Greek goddess named Artemis. And I found some very interesting tidbits as I was looking through the Wikipedia entry for Artemis. And I want to read a couple of things to you. And then you tell me what you think. So, in that video where someone mentioned that marais means swamp in French, it was a video that, let me quickly look it up so I can shout out this creator. Was it? Let me check. Oh, I better not say what that was. So it was Game Plus, The Alchemist, unveiling Melina's mystery. I think here a couple of things were said, as well as the secret Elden Ring DLC prophecy of the Emerald Gecko. I will try to link those two videos in the description of this one here. And they kind of like made me think of Mikela standing for the obsession with youth, with not aging, with not dying. He as the kid. And we have Malenia standing for sickness, for physical, organic decay, disease, rot. And let me go to the screenshots took of Artemis Wikipedia article. So let me quickly start here. In ancient Greek religion and mythology, Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, nature, vegetation, childbirth, care of children, and chastity. In later times, she was identified with Selene, the personification of the moon. She was often said to roam the forests and mountains, attended by her entourage of nymphs. The goddess Diana is her Roman equivalent. So here already we have some interesting bits. We have Greek mentioned, we have Italy mentioned, Rome, the Romans, not Italy, the Roman Empire. So you have the Romans who called that goddess that they appropriated from some quote unquote pagan tribe Diana. And then we have the Greeks appropriating her as Artemis. And we already have two completely different names, and they're about the same myth. And you're still not down to the actual original quote unquote human. So there are different animals associated to Artemis, which we all see, most of them in the game, I think. And then the symbols associated to her are bows and arrows, crescent moon, spear, knives, torch. And her mount is a golden chariot driven by four golden horned deer. She had Zeus as her father, and he had an affair with Madame Leto. The wife of Zeus, Hera, got really upset at Madame Leto getting pregnant, so she forbade her giving birth anywhere on land. And apparently, the island of Delos gave refuge to Madame Leto, allowing her to give birth to her children. In most accounts, Artemis is born first, and then her second twin, Apollo. What I found interesting is Artemis was worshipped as one of the primary goddesses of childbirth and midwifery. She was also a patron of healing and disease, particularly among women and children, and believed to send both good health and illness upon women and children. So we have the honest nature of cause and effect, that is good and bad happen all at the same time. I mean, they come together, they come packaged. You can't just have one, the duality, right? And then it's interesting to note that Artemis was associated with children, with age, with the young, with youth, which made me think of Mikola. And she was also a pattern of healing and disease, which made me think of Melania and her rot. So clearly, Miyazaki is trying to make a point here to not be literal about interpreting the different elements in the ways we are sometimes doing it when we go into the who killed Godwin and oh my God, Marika is rallying up these troops and telling them to go berserk and this and that. So I don't know. It's good to open up and broaden the perspective and think of what is it that we want to find? What are we looking for? And are we too focused on proving that we're right with our opinion, that we're becoming oblivious to some of the information and tidbits on the side that might add more to the picture to make it bigger and enlargen it and get us the more two birds eye view of things. So another interesting reference to Ramis and Artemis, as I was looking up online some possible meanings, I found a queen some hundreds of years before Christ, a Persian mythical figure, also appearing in Armenian and Greek historiography, and her name was Semiramis, also called Shamuramat. Shamuramat was a person that has historically been proven to exist, and Semiramis is a myth that's probably coming from Queen Shamuramat, but is a more mythical, a more highly elevated, fantastical version of the actual Shamuramat person that lived. So that Shamuramat lady was a queen after that's I'm skipping around here in the article. So she ruled for some time in Syria. There's somewhere I wanted to go with this, but I have the wrong screenshots in front of me, so I will not go into too much details about her ruling as such, but apparently she was a cool queen, beloved by many, beloved so much that it fueled the myths that were then later on becoming part of the Semiramis, who's a version of Artemis myth. So, something I wanted to read to you guys, which is from a Greek historian named Diodorus. And what he wrote about Semiramis was the following: she was of noble parents, the daughter of the fish goddess Derceto of Ascalon and of a mortal. He related that Derceto abandoned her at birth and drowned herself. So Derceto of Ascalon, a fish goddess, abandoned her daughter Semiramis at birth and drowned herself. Doves fed the child until a royal shepherd found her, and she later married a guy who was general under a king. That king took Semiramis as advisor, and she led him to great successes with her advice. He fell in love with her and wanted that general of his to give her to him as wife. And first, he offered his own daughter in return, and eventually threatened to put his eyes out as punishment. Now, I'm not really sure if he means putting his own eyes out, the king putting his own eyes out, or the king putting the eyes of the general out if he doesn't give Semiramis to him. And out of fear and out of doomed passion for his wife, the general fell into a kind of frenzy and madness and hanged himself. And after that, Semiramis lost her general husband, married Ninus, and we don't really know if that was a happy marriage or not. But I mean, really fell into kind of a frenzy and madness. That's wild. So, this whole Greek Assyrian myth of Semiramis, who's some kind of a twisted version of the Greek mythical legend of Artemis, which in Rome was known as Diana or Diane, shows me that, you know what, that Marika you guys seem to be talking about, I don't think that's the same Marika I've been seeing when I was playing Elden Ring. So this is